What is an anime? So I've wanted to make a video or a series of videos like this for a long time. So I decided to make this one about what separates an anime from a cartoon. Now I know some of you are sitting there saying, anime and cartoons are the same thing, even the professionals who make anime say they're the same thing, so you're wrong. Alright, but here's the thing. If they're the same, why do they feel so different? Why is it when you refer to Naruto, or Dragon Ball, or One Piece, you say anime and not cartoon? Why is it that when you refer to Teen Titans, Adventure Time, or Steven Universe, you say cartoon and not anime? Because they are different. And I'm gonna push all 5 of my brain cells to their maximum limit to build a cohesive argument in this video right here for you today to explain why I think anime and cartoons are not the same. Now, when I say the same, I don't mean quality. There are amazing shows that come from both cartoons and anime. What I mean by they aren't the same, I mean that the two types of content feel and act different from one another. It's like the difference between Disney and any other animated film. You know when it's a Disney film, just like you know when you're watching an anime. So how do we explain this? Well, let's start with the basics of what makes them different. First, when you think about the word cartoon, what do you think about? I grew up in the 90s, so I think about SpongeBob, Fairly OddParents, Teen Titans, Justice League, Billy and Mandy, Ed, Edd and Eddy. Now, when I say the word anime, what do you think about? I think One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, Death Note, Bleach, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, Digimon. Now, you may have noticed when it came to anime, I picked ones from the shonen genre, while with cartoons, I picked more of a variety. And that's because growing up in the West, we didn't really get a lot of the more comedy and slice-of-life anime until around 2010. And even if they were dubbed, you didn't see those kind of shows on Saturday morning cartoon channels. Now, why wouldn't you see these types of anime advertised for children? Well, because of scenes like this. See, in Japan, anime is marketed towards all kinds of ages. Some are marketed towards young kids, some for 13 and up, some specifically for adults, and most for all ages. While in the US, cartoons are usually made for kids around the ages of 10 and up. Unless you're talking about the adult cartoons, but we keep those very separate from our kids' cartoons. Like McDonald's keeping the secret recipe for the Szechuan sauce, but that's besides the point. Do you see the difference emerging? See, with American cartoons, we make the kids' content for kids. While older people can enjoy them, like in the case of Avatar: The Last Airbender, they're still made with a younger audience in mind as the main audience. We even have a rating system to tell parents what kind of programming this show is so they can decide if they want their kids to watch it or not. However, in Japan, they don't restrict shows to some sort of guideline that the creators have to follow. While they do have shows for children, they don't have a huge gap in between what can be showed to children and what can't. Take this scene from Naruto, for instance.
Transform! Huh? Gotcha! That's my sexy jutsu! Cut the stupid tricks! This is your last warning!
This is a shonen anime, meaning it's for a younger audience. And when I say younger, I don't mean under 10. I mean like your nephew who wants to play video games and watch Avengers movies all day. And yes, they do air shows like this one during primetime television. Here in the West, we aired episodes of Naruto on something called Toonami, which took the place of Adult Swim on Saturday nights at midnight. You heard me right, midnight. You had to stay up past 11:59 p.m. to watch Naruto in the US. And why is that? Because in the West, we don't want kids to see blood, drug use, alcohol consumption, or even mention the idea of sex. That is exclusively for adults and older teenagers. So if you had a life and went out on Saturday nights, you would miss out on some of the best anime. just because the only way to watch it back then was to be at home at 12 midnight on a Saturday. And if you were too young to be going out on Saturdays, chances were your parents paid heavy attention to what you were watching on TV and what lessons they were telling or showing you. Meanwhile, in Japan, they show scenes like this for kids as early as the age of 13, and no one bats an eye. Here, we won't even let blood gush out of a wound because it's too graphic for children. That's why you'll never see anyone in the Avengers actually bleed. You'll only see the leftover blood on their face or near the wound after it's magically dried. It's why you'll never hear anyone mention anything remotely close to sex, or even hear the word sex, but in anime you'll see scenes like this.
I can't believe I'm doing this.
Now there are times when you see blood in American cartoons, but it will only go as graphic as someone scraping their knee or has a bloody nose from an injury. And while we show a bloody nose to show an injury or illness, a bloody nose in Japan means something entirely different. And when it comes to people's emotional reactions to things, anime conveys emotions in a very different way than American cartoons do. For instance, what does this scene tell you? Or this scene? Or this scene? Or how about these scenes? In all of these scenes, you understood the context with zero dialogue or movement, just a single still image. And yet you understood it. Why? Because in anime, they use specific visual language that is missing in the US. If you had never seen an anime, then you would probably see the blood nose and think injury, or the sweat drop and think exhaustion. But these two scenes actually mean perverted thought and anxious or confused. Now, this doesn't mean anime is instantly pornographic. Japanese people also keep that away from children under a certain age. But the comedy of something sexual happening is commonplace in anime. Because this isn't meant to be sexual but a joke, it's not seen as pornographic. But why would this ever be a joke? He's clearly grabbing her breasts, I might hear you ask. Well, that's because of another thing Japan does different than Americans. PDA. See, in American cartoons, you might see two characters kiss or hug to show that these two characters like or love each other. This is usually reserved for the older characters in the show, not the main cast. However, in anime, you are 10 times more likely to see this as a form of affection. Why is that? Well, because in America, it's normal to see people hug, kiss each other, or even touch each other's butts. But in Japan, physical contact is almost never permitted. Now, I don't mean Japanese people never touch each other, it's just considered more rude or invasive to do so outside of very specific contexts. For instance, shaking hands. When two Japanese people meet for the first time, they will most likely bow and not shake hands, because touching hands without knowing the person is considered rude and you could be spreading germs. Even blowing your nose in public is considered rude for similar reasons. But sometimes, in a visual medium like anime, you need to show characters affection for one another. So instead of hugging or kissing, they do head pats, something you will almost never see in an American cartoon. Another major thing that separates anime from cartoons is language. Now, I don't mean English and Japanese. There are plenty of anime that get dubbed into English. What I mean is the way people speak to each other in anime versus how they speak to each other in a cartoon. Just look at this scene here. Did you see what he did? Okay, let's play this scene one more time and see if you can catch what he did. There, you see it? He swore. That isn't a subbing mistake, that was intentional. Can you even imagine a character in a show for 14-year-olds swearing in America? No, you can't. The only swearing you'll ever see will be in cartoons like Family Guy or South Park, because swearing in the West is a big no-no, especially if your content is for impressionable children. Now, this doesn't mean Japanese people go around swearing with one another in public. Swearing in Japan is actually more rare. However, in anime, they change the rules because they know that it's entertainment. They don't think that child will grow up to become
a public menace
to society just because they watched a couple TV shows as a kid or read manga on the way to work. Because anime is not like cartoons. See, when you talk to someone in the West and say, I like cartoons, if you're above the age of 12, chances are someone will eventually say, don't you have a life, or are you some kind of loser? Because cartoons are still seen as made for children. Now, when I say this, I don't mean that all cartoons are seen as childish. What I am trying to do is get you to think about the last time you watched an animated show by DC or Marvel. It's probably taking most of you a while to think of that answer, mainly because these shows aren't marketed towards you anymore. But if I asked you when was the last time you watched an anime, you would probably have an immediate answer. This is because people still think of cartoons as made for kids. Thankfully though, with the rise of the Marvel films and shows like Invincible, cartoons are being seen less and less like kids shows and more like forms of entertainment for all ages. However, in Japan, they have had that mentality for decades. They already produce shows with multiple age ranges in mind. Like I said, you can read manga on your way to work and most people won't bat an eye. Again, this doesn't mean everyone in Japan loves anime. There are always those people who find animated art forms to be nerdy or weird, and that's okay. My main point is that in Japan, the way anime is treated and created is different than the way it is in the West. And because of that cultural shaping, it has become its own separate art form, which is why anime is not cartoons. While anime and cartoons in meaning are the same, in practice they act very different. From the way their characters emote, the way they express the mood of the scene, who is allowed to talk about sexual content, and even how the characters talk to one another. It is its own separate art form, and that is okay. See, much like with food, furniture, clothing, architecture, and music, cartoons and anime are an extension of two different cultures. And when a culture takes an art form and molds it to their culture, it grows and adapts in a different way, much like a rabbit in the winter or in the spring. Art is never the same once a different culture molds it, and that is why anime is not cartoons. Well, everybody, if you liked what you saw, please click that like button and subscribe. If you want to talk about the video, please comment down below, or you can come talk to me at Twitch, where I stream every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Link in the description. I hope to see you all next time, and until then, have a wonderful day.